One final point, maybe this comes back, touches on some of the supplementaries Rachel was asking around a cross-sectoral approach. We've talked, obviously we can say more about what we can ask of public agency or what we can demand of public agencies. But I think there's a key role, and Farry, you talked about your organisations and others who may be doing quite small local support, whether it's mentoring or that kind of thing. I'm wondering whether there is enough support given to that kind of, both within the third sector, from organisations such as yours, but also into other bits of the third sector who will be providing services for ethnic minority communities and individuals. Is there enough information flowing within the third sector and between public and third sector bodies around cultural sensitivities, around sort of broadening our understanding collectively as a society?
So one of the things, again, I should have mentioned this in the introductory section, and when I was introducing myself, it's part of the Race for Human Rights programme is that we do consultation with public and third sector organisations. So, for example, at the moment we're sitting with 21 clients, and that is across public and mainstream organisations specifically. Okay. So it allows us to give a good understanding, receive a good understanding of where people are, what sort of direction of travel organisations are going when it's about race equality or implementing anti-racism, etc. So that has been really insightful in terms of coming here today. I think what the question is about being cross-sectional, absolutely. Just the same way that we would talk about intersectionality, because life is complex. Everybody has complex needs, and they cross over. And I think that's definitely something that, again, COVID has brought to the forefront as well. And just sort of going back, what you were mentioning about race inequalities in Scotland, and I had just basically said white privilege and white fragility. Yeah. What the reason why I said that, and I should have expanded on that, is again through the work that we do within SEMVO. So we're national based, so we have clients that are in Highlands and south of Scotland and everywhere. So it's a really good full picture that we get from different areas, and specifically the barriers they face. And when we talk about these things, there is still denial that there is racism within society or within that local area. There's a lot of racial gaslighting that goes on, and even in our meetings that we have, the number of I've lost the number of times that I've been racially gaslighted as well as my colleagues, for example, in any meetings that we go. We still come across attitudes, again, go through from frontline members of staff and managers, particularly of All Lives Matter, and we know that is problematic, and the whole fact that yes, we treat everybody equally. These are the type of things that is the reality, and these are people who I mentioned. The term I brought in was street level bureaucrats. Those people who actually have the influence in their organisations. This is an attitude that they have. So training can only do so much. So the accountability, exactly what Jatin was saying. Where is the accountability? The public sector equality duty has been in place for since at least 2010. We've had the legislation in there, but what has happened in practical terms? Is there a possibility of but demanding for leaders within civil service or within the public sector to actually have targets in place that they must achieve these outcomes, for example, within this specific period? Because we know this can happen. Like if we look at gender representation, for example, if we look at the recent movement towards LGBT communities as well. So we know it can happen, and it can happen to other communities, and why can't it happen to implement anti-racism? And that's when I go back to saying white privilege and white fragility is the biggest issue within Scotland, because we don't see it. I'm still being welcomed into this country, and I've been born and brought up here. So that in itself is a disgrace. Yeah. And, you know, when we're talking about organisations, that's organisational culture. And I think that in itself, it is a really hard job to change, because policies can only take on so much. It's down to the human capital within the organisation. That is what essentially fundamentally needs to change. And then that's when we talk about proportional representation as a bare minimum. So then you'll get those people with those experiences, and then that goes back to what Jatin was saying about, you know, the work that they've done, that they've published on the 20 years since devolution, what has been done, and again through it there, it's lack of implementation and accountability, and there has been a number of opportunities that both Parliament and Government have had, and then the question is, we still don't see enough progress, so therefore, how would you expect ethnic minorities then to have trust in their local governments and their national governments in terms of going forward? Why would an ethnic minority want to work for the Scottish Parliament or the Scottish Government or any other public sector organisation if they can't actually see that outward, visible narrative that says that, you know what, we're taking a zero tolerance approach now to racism, just like we're going to implement 50-50 in gender. And we're taking a zero tolerance approach towards LGBT communities as well.
Okay, thanks.